welcome to another episode of Educators Can. Tonight, I'm Nikki Leonti from Start Your Own Family Daycare, and tonight I'm joined by the one and only Kath Horsler from Simple Reflect. Thanks, Kath, for joining us.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks.
Now, we have always had some issues when it comes to our Wednesday night chats. However, we've never let that stop us from going live. So we are live, and we actually can't see each other because Kath is frozen from my end and I'm frozen on her end. But I can hear you fine. So we're just going to keep going, see what happens, see how it goes. We always have fun with our conversations. So we have two really, really good questions tonight. So we're going to be talking about celebrating specific events with our family daycare with our children and families. And then the second question we have was a question sent in all about what apps do we use for programming. So we're going to cover both of those tonight. And please leave your comments below. So let us know your opinion as we're talking, or if you're watching the recording, feel free to leave a comment because we're always on Facebook. Hey, Kath, I know, I see you on Facebook every day. We're always around. We're happy to answer questions and reply to your comments even after the recordings happen. So don't forget, if you have friends who are educators, or even if you have a group of educators on Facebook who are in your scheme or in your local area, and you feel like this could be really useful, just click on the share button and you can share it in a group. You could share it on your page, wherever you like, because I know that a lot of this content, we answer questions that people are sometimes too nervous to ask, or newbies might be thinking it but just think, oh, I don't want to ask that. People might think it's a bit of a silly question because we were there. And Kath's been doing family daycare now for a very long time, and she's been answering questions and mentoring new educators for a very long time. So we're here to help you. And we're here every Wednesday night. Now, I have just realised...
And I get
that you're on daylight saving
week as well, just from individuals, and a great way is to ask them here so that everyone hears the answer as well. Oh, I don't think I can hear Nikki.
Yes. No, you can't. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so let me just bring up the first question. Here we go. So do other educators do all the events throughout the year? So this question was sent in because there's been a lot of discussion this week about Halloween and whether it is an essential event to be celebrating. And there is a lot of people on the pro side and then on the con side because, you know, there is the question that is Halloween a suitable or necessary event to be celebrating, particularly for preschool age children, and especially under twos. So if we are, all right, Kath's gone. She'll be back in a minute, I'm sure. And you're back. I'll keep going. So, you know, this question and whether it's an essential to celebrate was really quite topical, being October now. I have not celebrated Halloween with family daycare children. In fact, this will be the first year I do celebrate it with my own children, purely because my eldest is turned 7 and some of the other kids in the neighbourhood want to do a trick or treat. But for me, you know, we're not going overly into the whole background of the event. Like, he's only 7, so he wouldn't understand a lot of it, but it's just going to be a fun kind of community event. That's why we're doing it. It's just to be part of the community here, join the neighbourhood kids and families and, you know, celebrate a little bit of fun. I wouldn't celebrate it in family dates too young, but again, this is going to be up to you and up to your families. So when it comes to deciding what events and what celebrations you're going to do each year, oh, you're back. Hello.
I'm back. It wouldn't let me back. Kicked me off and it wouldn't let me back on, but I'm back. Sorry, keep going.
So I was just talking about Halloween.
Yes.
Just saying that, yeah, so I'd love your input on this because I know you've been following the discussion in some of the Facebook groups. So I was just saying that in my perspective, that I have never celebrated that with family daycare children. I feel they're too young. And in fact, this year will be the first year I celebrate with my own children because my eldest has turned 7. And we just do it, like this year we'll be doing it purely as a celebration to be part of the community. It's not necessarily Halloween as such, but for my children to be doing something with the neighbourhood kids and families. So that's why we're doing it. But I'm not done it with preschool age children. I just don't think it's necessary or essential from my perspective. But I'd love to hear what you do and what your thoughts are.
I've never had families that felt it was important, and I've always had that discussion with my families and just let them know that we're not doing a big Halloween thing with the children. And unless your children are and your families are really looking forward to it and wanting it and whatnot, I just don't think it's terribly relevant for our, especially since a lot of us have under 2s. I just don't know that is as relevant. However, a couple of years ago and last year, I sort of did a compromise because the families, I had one parent in particular who was, "Oh, are you going to do Halloween with the children?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I think your children are way, way too young to actually want this or get any value out of it." But what I did was a focus. We made little spiders and we made little spider webs. And so from a parent's perspective, we had done something that I suppose you could look at as often done in Halloween. But to the children, we were focusing on their interest in bugs and their interest in spiders and whatnot. So I combined the two together so that, and I think this is really important, parents can't feel like their children are missing out. It's really, really important to not let a parent feel like their child is missing out for any reason. And even if you can see that a child isn't ready for something, but a parent really feels like they want it done, how can you meet them in the middle? How can you still make it important or valuable, meaningful for the children, and the parent thinks their child or can see that their child isn't actually missing out? So for me, I just don't feel it's something that sits right with me. But in the same token, they were interested in spiders, so we did something around spiders. And I think that can actually be relevant for a lot of special events through the year. You can do things that will still be meaningful for the children, and you can join it together. See, Valentine's Day is another one that just doesn't sit well with me. I just don't like the whole context. To me, it's an adult theme. It's an adult context. But why not focus on pink and hearts for the week so that the parents can see that you can see, that you are doing something that is meaningful for the children. Especially, that's the time to focus on that colour if that colour's needs to be focused on or something like that. But then the whole rest of it around it just isn't relevant for the children, so why do it? Does that sort of,
And I think you're
sorry,
right,
I didn't hear what you said
like,
before. So,
really identifying. Well, just identifying really what events are important to you and your families. And, you do need to be mindful of religion as well, like for some children. So really, identifying what they're celebrating at home and what you also, like, you need to bring your culture as well and what you believe in. And so for me, we always do a big Christmas thing. That's never going to change. Big Easter thing. And we talk about the foundations of those events. And I think that differ for your children under twos, it's about craft and fun and as they get a bit older, Christmas stories, Easter stories, puppets, things like that can help them identify, understand some of the principles of those events. So I think like Valentine's Day is a no for me. I just think it's not a thing. Like it's just it's fun for adults for sure. Like I'll definitely take a night out with Andy and get a babysitter and do that for sure. But I don't, like, my kids wouldn't know what's going on.
No,
and it's
but
not like
do
a
ask.
foundational event.
Really?
I've never had a parent ask about that.
They do.
Right.
Oh, yes. Yep, I've had parents ask about it. And you need an answer to tell them. And that was my sort of compromise. Yeah. That was we'll focus on pink and we'll focus on hearts because that's important and that's learning and that's relevant to them. But the rest of it, is an adult concept. So to actually have a blurb around, that I can
think there's always
parents.
And, it is a great topic for craft, like talking about hearts and the colour pink and things like that. And I also know that there are some educators out there who will literally celebrate absolutely everything that's on the calendar because they just like doing it. They just like, incorporating the craft side of it, have, for their craft and stories and discussions and play opportunities. They love, they get the calendars out and there's like, World Pancake Day or, all sorts of different things. And some educators are nuts. Like they just love every single one of those and that's cool too. So there's no right or wrong, but I think you don't have to do all of these things. I think that's really just the point of our talk tonight is you don't have to go and do all of those things. And if they deeply are against what you believe in, then don't. And explain that to parents.
Yeah. I got a lot of flack, I suppose. I got a lot of flack about...
Has just said... Sorry, you keep going.
Oh, it's a bit choppy, isn't it? Look, I got a bit of flack it was June or July when we did PJ Pajama Day. And and I got questions from educators because they were like, well, how you talk so much about programming in things that are relevant and important to the children and that the children will learn from, how doing a PJ day does that actually go along with your philosophy? And I did get quite a few, actually. I was really surprised about it because, and we did have a big chat about it in the forum because a lot of educators said that it was not something that they would do with their children. But with my children, they absolutely love their PJ day and they only have it once a year and we go to playgroup in our PJs and we sit on the mat at morning tea time, like after morning tea time, and we have a whole discussion on night routines and reading books and brushing your teeth and all of those sorts of things. And then when we come back home, I follow up on all those sorts of discussions. And it really does facilitate, introduce a really beautiful discussion that actually keeps going for days. And so to me, a PJ's day for my children was actually really valuable and meaningful and worked.
Yeah.
But for other educators, it was like, no, that's just not on. And that's okay. It's okay to say, look, that's relevant for you, but not for me. Or I love doing this, but your children won't get anything out of it. So it's about knowing your own children and what you do this year. Like, I might not actually do that next year if I don't think that the children will benefit from it. Then we might miss that and do something else. That it doesn't have to be the same every year, and it doesn't have to be just because. Like, if it's relevant to your children, then that's enough of a reason to do it.
And you know what? I just think if it's fun, it can just be fun. Like, it can just be a fun thing to do. And it's like Pancake Day. It can just be a fun thing to do. Not everything we do has to have a very strategic, educational element every single step of the day. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. So I really think that, when people are questioning particular element of, yes, could you please head out? Hang on, I've got guests. So when you are doing something just for fun, it can be just for fun. So I think that's where educators could kind of give themselves permission to just do something fun. And for me, we didn't do PJ Day. We did do a movie day. So we did, the children got to pick out a movie that they liked. We made some popcorn and we cut up some fruit salad, and they got to eat off the table, like away from the table, which was like this huge thing. They got to sit. We sat up on the rug in the lounge room and watched a movie. And that was like, they were so excited about this movie. And it was just fun. Like, it was just really fun. And, yeah, we did have a lot of discussion about the movie for days after, because it was just this big highlight of their week. So it was just a lot of fun. So I think, if you are one of those educators who need kind of a focal point for your weeks and you want to, like, do every single event on the calendar, go for it if that's what you want to do. I think it's just, don't put so much pressure on yourselves. So, and Kathleen just said that she does PJ Day on the last day of every school holidays. And she says she does it purely because the children find it so funny to wear PJs to care, and no learning necessary, just purely for laughs, which I think is really, it's just really fun. Like, it's just, the kids just want to have fun, and there can be definitely some learning elements there. So we're getting a bit on now. We might move to our next question, actually, before it gets too late. And I also realised that you've got daylight savings and I don't, and I didn't even realise it was daylight savings until just before when you disappeared. So it's actually nearly 9 o'clock there. Is that right?
That we are daylight savings and you're not, but that's okay. We worked it out.
So yeah, we can definitely move it earlier. So we could do 6:30 my time for sure. So I will remember that for next time.
Okay.
I forgot about that. It didn't even occur to me. Okay, so we have had a question sent in. This was over in the Start Your Own Family Daycare, our private group. We had the question sent in about what apps do you use for programming? So this is a really good question. Now, I'm going to ask Kath for her expertise And I'm also just going to let people know that you don't have to use an app if you don't want to. But from my experience, because I do like to take photos, it makes life so much easier. So if you're still, I remember when I first started family daycare, I heard an educator was printing out all their photos every week, printing them out, like going to the printers to print them out. And she's like, I'm spending about $40 or $50 a week on printing.
Yeah.
And I thought, my goodness, you do not need to be doing that. Like, parents are probably barely even acknowledging the effort that you're putting in. So if you haven't switched to an app, tonight's discussion may lead you to switching to an app because it's so much easier. I'm all for going green and going paperless wherever possible, because everything is then easily accessible for you, for your scheme, and for your families. So, but I do know there's so many different apps out there, and what's the right one and which one's the best value for money, and is it going to do everything that I need it to do? So, Kath, can you tell us about Simple Reflect? So if you don't know about Simple Reflect, Kath has been part of the team that has created this app purely for edu. It's not like some big business that has just kind of gone in and created something they thought was good. Kath actually uses this, and she has taken feedback from many, many educators to create something that's really, really useful in your everyday planning and programming and all of that, and getting making it easy to get to families and to coordinators. So can you tell us a bit about what Simple Reflect is, what it can do for educators, like on a basic level, and then also what kind of what's the cost of it, so that people can have an idea of what they need to be budgeting for if they're starting to think about moving to apps.
Okay, well, I originally built Simple Reflect because I was looking to go digital. I really wanted to save time, and you'll find that was the main thing. I just found if I'm doing enough on paper, I'm actually writing the same things over and over again. So my main thinking with Simple Reflect was that I wanted something where we could put our program in, and then it would transfer it over onto our reflections and onto our observations with, and I wouldn't have to write the same thing over and over. So that was my very first thinking around Simple Reflect. So that is what the very, very basic of Simple Reflect is. You pop your program in, it knows the children that are there for the day, it then transfers them over. You then click over to a page for a reflection. You can do a group reflection for the day or for the week if you want, and then you choose which of those children that are in that reflection that you want to do an observation. So it's super, super easy to flick any of those observations to parents whenever you need to. And so it's about connecting with parents. It's about showing them actually how much we do with their children. And if we're just doing our programming on paper and then typing up observations to then send them, I don't think parents see enough. But, that's definitely an option, that we need to be sending our observations or giving our observations in some way to our parents these days. I just think that that's just a basic requirement.
Yeah.
And so by using an app, to connect with parents in that way, you're linking it all up. You really are. So does that say clearly what it? I just think A lot of
Yeah.
educators just don't realize how much time they can actually save by using an app. And I mean, I always say to educators when they say to me, do I have to change to an app? It's like, no, you absolutely don't. Choose what works for you. But if you're struggling to keep up, if you're not keeping children, if you're not, full and you're not connecting with parents well enough, then really, your next step is to look at an app so that you can give more information to parents as well. And I love Simple Reflect because it's super, super easy, and that it's a guided program. So, it guides you to put your programming in, it then guides you to do a reflection, it guides you to do an observation, and then you flick it off to parents. So, and then it's all there in a
Lost you.
out there. So in the sense of apps, if you're going to go digital, work out what's going to work for you and try different ones so that you find one that really does work for you. Simple Reflect, to me, I tried to make it as basic as I could, but still having all of the things that an educator needs. So it's, it is super basic, but it saves you the time and it gives you the ability to connect with parents. And I think they're the two things that really are important with an app.
And I think also with Simple Reflect, you can keep everything all together. Like you don't need an app for this and an app for that. It's like it's all in one, which is what I noticed particularly some of the other free apps are great just for your photos, but not for actual observations and all of that kind of thing. I found that I was using that before I found Simple Reflect. I was using Kinderloop. And so I found like it was, and that was actually really easy to use just for the photos, of getting the photos to families.
Yeah.
And I could put a little description with it. But what I found with Kinderloop when I was using it, it was more just kind of like a Facebook for kids, like for the families. But it was another thing for them to check, so they weren't actually seeing it. Whereas with Simple Reflect, you could email it to them, they would see that. So that was something that I found was, with the Kinderloop, I just found that it was another app that parents had to check, and they didn't necessarily go and check that because it was just some photos. I couldn't put a lot with it. I don't know if it's changed in that time. That was a couple of years ago. So, and the other thing that I was doing, I had a Facebook group, a private, like a closed Facebook group just for my families. And I used that for notifications. So, don't forget that we're doing this or whatever like that, because I found parents were mostly always on Facebook. And so they would see those notifications. And I'd share a couple of photos through the day as well in that group. But again, with Facebook, you can't really share observations. I found that too hard. So being able to email that to parents made life a lot easier. So yeah, that's definitely what I found. Because I know there are some free apps out there. I still feel like the free ones are not doing all of that you do need. What is the price of Simple Reflect if people want to give it a go?
So Simple Reflect is $29 a month. And, that's ongoing support as well. So with that is, one-on-one sessions if you need to set it up. If you need, I just had an educator that has worked with me for 3 months, and she was so far behind, and she was behind for a number of reasons, but we just sort of worked with her weekly to bring all her things up to date and get a really firm cycle happening that was just really positive, and she was able to move forward with that really easily. So it's about, I suppose, you know, if you're looking at doing something new, then you're either not keeping up, or you're looking for an easier way, or something's not quite working if you're looking for something new. And so look at what's actually not working. Is it time management? Is it that you don't understand the language of the EYLF? Is it that that you don't actually know what to look for with the children? Like, really pinpoint why you're not coping at the moment, or why you're looking to make the change, and have that as a focus point. It's okay to verbalize that and say, hey, I'm just not keeping up, or hey, I really want an easier way to do it, or the way I'm doing it just doesn't work for me anymore. And it might have, you might have had a fabulous way that's been working the last 5 years, but now you're ready for a change. Pinpoint why you're looking at changing.
Doing something over and over and over every single week, it gets boring. And I definitely, that was one of the reasons why I changed. So for me, when I was changing, I was bored and I wanted to simplify it. Like, I felt like like what you were saying before, I felt like I was double up on every single thing that I was doing. I felt like I was doing it multiple times. And so I simplified it. So even my planning for the week was a mind map. But if you head to the blog, you'll see the mind map that I do on a weekly basis. And that, I take a photo of that, and that goes in my observations. So, I don't have to repeat that, which made my life a lot easier. I wasn't having to rewrite it or anything like that. So that photo would go into my observations. I didn't have to send stuff to, like, specifically just to my coordinator anymore, because she could come in and see what I was doing. And then you've also got the fact that, you can email stuff to parents quite easily. So find out, I think one of the things you want to know first is how do your families like to be communicated with? Some like to read stuff at your service. And if that's the case, then having the folder out at sign-in area is great. Some, my families were always in way too much of a rush to do that. They would be like, oh, that's beautiful, and keep going, which is fine, because I knew everyone was busy. Mine loved checking Facebook for photos, and they loved getting emails. Like, they would always check their emails. But there are some families who don't check their emails. So work out how your parents want to be communicated with, and try and find the easiest way possible for them without breaking your back. Like, you don't want to have 3 different methods just for your families. And once you find something that is suitable for most, then you need to educate the others of how you do it. Okay, so you need to kind of train them in, look, I'm going to send an email out every Monday or every Friday or whatever it's going to be. So finding the best way without breaking your back is going to be, one of those prerequisite elements for whatever method you want to use. And for those who are freaked out by technology, it doesn't have to be an app. The question was specifically about apps, so don't feel like you have to go and get an app if it freaks you out. We want to be simplifying your systems, not making it more complicated.
Work out what works for you. When you're starting to talk to parents too, and you want to change your way, especially with Simple Reflect, one of the things I say to educators is talk to your parents about, and you can say it as simply as, gee, I noticed that you're quite in a rush, you're always in and out, and I know you'd love to know more of what we do each day or week. Would you mind if I sent you an email each week just to update you on what your child's done? And most people would say, oh, yeah, that'd be great, and not even think anything else of it. So it's how you present it to parents as a win for them as well, because I do get a lot of some educators come to me and say, oh, look, my parents just aren't happy with the thought of me using technology. And it's like, okay, well, how did you present it to them? How did you actually ask them or tell them about how you are going to change your programming? Because it is a requirement for us to keep up with our programming, and you need to think of the longevity of your business, especially in family daycare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super important. Oh,
well,
I love that.
They are all of our questions actually tonight. I know we've had a few
they
issues,
are.
so I can't see.
I can't see it
now.
Sorry.
But I will go back and check them tonight anyway to see if there's any other comments that were there. But thanks for coming on tonight, and we'll be back next week. It was always fun. So I want you, if you are still with us right now, go and have a look. I'll put the link to Kath's site as well as the Start Your Own Family Daycare site in the comments below. And if you have any questions, we're always open for people to reach out to us. Happy to answer those questions.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, send us any questions you might have for next week, and we will chat to you then.
Thanks, Nikki. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. See you later. Bye.